right, I'm going to call the select board meeting to order, Town of St. Albans. It's August 21st, 6:30, 2023 is here. If you join me with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right. Well, welcome everybody. So we got a little rain this morning, but we needed it. I think we needed it. So and we'll start first here. We've got the warrants. I'll start my right, if that's all right. We'll work our way down this way.
Okay, I have two payroll warrants. The first warrant is dated August 11th, 2023. Covers the pay period from July 31st to August 6th. And it is in the amount of $28,647.99. You want me to do both or do one?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, we'll do both.
The other warrant that we have is dated August 18th, 2023, and it covers the August 7th to the August 13th pay period. And that warrant is in the amount of $34,712.50. There doesn't seem to be anything out of order, it's normal payroll. And I will make a motion that we approve both of these warrants as presented.
Second. Yep. Thank you. I think Jonathan got that, maybe Brennan. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Let's see, the general warrant.
Okay, I have the general fund warrant dated August 21st, 2023. In the amount of $94,873.34. Some of the bigger ticket items on there is the Franklin County Sheriff's Department for $45,000. And Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is our health insurance carrier for a little over $23,000. So I make a motion, we approve this warrant.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Brendan? You got
Okay,
the-
I have four miscellaneous warrants. I'm gonna start with the Stonehouse first, dated August 21st, 2023, in the amount of $800. It's two $400 payments to talent for Bay Park events. Nobby Reed and Nicholas Sherman. So I make a motion, we approve that warrant.
Second. Thank you. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I've got an industrial park warrant dated August 21st, 2023, in the amount of $35,326.80. We have our normal three invoices from Green Mountain Power for the sign and road lights, and then the sewage pump. And the largest amount being over $34,000 is payment to People's Trust on, if you don't remember, we had a lot of issues that required public works staff to be on call and at the ready in the park. The pump stations were failing because the pumps couldn't handle the extra fatty material, the thick gelatinous fatty material that was flowing through them, namely from Ben & Jerry's and Barry Callebaut. So we worked with a sewer system designer and engineer, and we put in grinder pumps that were engineered by literal rocket scientists. I read up on them pretty well. They're cool. So they suck the fat in and they chop it up as it propels it into the force main. So we took out $160,000 loan on behalf of the park tenants. And when we build it back to them, we look at their annual water usage and we bill them back by that percentage. So if Peerless Clothing uses only 5% of the water usage in the whole park, they're only paying us back for 5% of this loan repayment. It was a 5-year note, and this is already year 4. So after this, we'll just have 1 year left. So with all that context, I make a motion we approve.
Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Again, it's important to note, I think, Brendan, what you're saying is this is ultimately
That's a bill back.
bill back. Yeah,
So that
yeah.
34,638, it will be repaid by the park tenants. And the town clerk did a lot of really good work there. Yeah, and we took a huge infrastructure cost being 160,000, divided it up among 5 years, and the interest on this is minimal. It's $1,800 for the entire year. It's very minimal. Good rate from People's Trust. So then I have an impact fee warrant dated August 21st, 2023. There's one invoice in the amount of $5,500. It was a split payment. I think the other $3,200 due on this $8,700 invoice came from the general fund. It's the final payment for the town forest trail redevelopment. So impact fee warrant, 8/21/23, $5,500. Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
My last one, it's a stormwater utility warrant with just one invoice for $406 from Aldrich and Elliott, an engineering and project management firm that's been working with Dave. This invoice is related to project management on the Tanglewood stormwater project. So stormwater utility warrant, 8/21/23, $406. I make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Ask a question, maybe. Now that we've hired somebody, are we gonna see those invoices from the engineers that have been doing a bunch of the work that we didn't have someone? Are those gonna tail off? Oh, that's EIV, different. This is design and that, but we should see those tail off. Okay.
Any other discussion, questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you, Brendan. Thanks, guys. All right, next up, we have, let's see, the minutes from the last, we've got two meetings. The first one was the regular meeting of August 7th, 2023. Second set was the special meeting of August 14th, 2023 about stormwater utility. Just wanted to thank again, Jen, they're very detailed on the minutes, especially the special meeting, which is great. Thank you. So I'd ask for a motion to pass those minutes as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or comment? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, I think that's at least three. And next up, we'll go to public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment, we can come up here. Just please state your name and town of residence. If anyone on Zoom would like to do that as well, please raise your hand. Anyone? Yep, please.
I am Heather Gutchell. This is my husband, Colin. We live in Ashton Drive in St. Albans Town. I'm a little bit of a talker, so I'm gonna get my talking points out. I want to first thank you guys for coming to Ashton Drive. It's a circle that we live on and clearing out the stormwater ditches around the circle. And also to come with a complaint. We live at the bottom of the hill from Ashton Drive and High Street, and we get all the water runoff into our property. We have a large pipe that I would say drainage pipe. And all the water goes down that pipe and it's supposed to go down to the side of our yard. The problem is the runoff side yard is completely overgrown and I've been complaining about this to the town for 2 years. I keep getting told that it's our responsibility to clear that off, that the town only has a certain amount of space in our yard, that's their responsibility and it's our responsibility. I don't think that's fair. It was overgrown when I bought the house 5 years ago. We have spent almost $3,000 replacing our sump pump because our basement consistently floods to the top step. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, on top of the town saying it's our responsibility to clear that pathway out, and that their responsibility is only the pipe. No one ever comes to clear out the pipe. Myself and my neighbors are the ones who clear out the pipe. It gets leaves and mud, and so nobody ever comes to even check it, or they would see that it's constantly getting plugged. So I'm doing the town's work on that. And then I also cleared out half of that path down my side yard in the spring. It's all overgrown again. My assumption is going to take thousands of dollars to dig that up and lay rocks down, which again, I don't think should be our responsibility to do that. Our side yard is completely unusable from spring until midsummer because of all the water that flows, and then anytime we have a storm. And now with everything being dug out, there's just going to be more water coming into our yard. Am I missing anything? And I would probably say our side yard is longer than this room. Would you say?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of property that's getting completely saturated and we can't even use our side yard for anything. If we were to build something, it would just sink into the ground. So I'm asking the town to please come and dig that out and take care of it. So you can have proper drainage, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do all that work on our circle and then just literally have the water come into our yard and not take care of that side drain.
It's done at some point, there's base stone there,
Sure.
and it would go next to Portland Glass Building, and I believe there's a storm drain that goes down in there. But the water getting from Ashton Drive to that point is not doing well.
So now literally there's a hole in front of that pipe filled with rocks, and that water is literally gonna go nowhere except into our yard, because there's no place for it to drain. So I have pictures, videos, if you want me to send them to you guys, or if somebody wants to come. I know Dave has seen what I'm talking about, and I've talked to him a couple of times, and he said my next step was to come here. Not gonna lie, pretty frustrated, trying to stay calm about it. So I'm not sure what the next steps are for this is.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I was on my computer trying to look up the map here of where it
So it's
is.
15 Ashton Drive.
Yeah, definitely found, yeah, you're definitely at the bottom of of Ashton, like you said. So, yeah, I mean, anyone else, any thoughts or comments? I don't know enough about the individual site, or, you know, we have been spending a lot of time on stormwater issues, stormwater utilities, and we spent I don't know, 2.5 hours last Monday as a special meeting. All about these issues, because they are popping up all over. You know, one of the questions is, who's responsible for what? You know, that's a tough part. And I don't have an opinion on this one. I don't know. I'm just stating that out, you know, trying to figure that out. I'm not sure, Dave, has any other comments or anyone else, any questions or?
It's correct. You need to go there and clean up the ditches, because it was undermining the road. They have come years ago. And it does, it runs down to the bottom there, it runs across the property. And once it's on the backside of the property, it runs beside Portland Glass there.
Yep.
And then goes around, and it goes down towards the south. And it's similar to many other things around town, in that, you know, you can keep part of the ditches in the right of way. As soon as it gets outside the right of way on the private property, we're kind of stuck, because we can't go out there and deal with private, on private property at this point. So that's why I wanted to. I heard something, tell you the story, I think I heard you go in the past before, so it's.
Yep.
You have my full permission to come on my private property.
Yeah.
My full permission.
It's like a good shortcut through there, so maybe, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. there's lots of- But, yeah, I just would really appreciate some thought on this, because I keep hearing that it's my responsibility, and it's just getting to the point where I've already spent thousands of dollars taking care of my basement because of this issue. I think that if you're spending all this money redoing that in the circle, it makes sense to do that as well, because it's literally not gonna, I keep saying literally, sorry, it's not gonna do what you want. You want it to drain and get away from the streets, but it's not gonna happen if that doesn't get taken care of, and I don't wanna spend that money doing that for the town. Like, it doesn't make sense for us as citizens to have to take care of the town's responsibility.
We've also reached out recently to the insurance to see what's covered, because that'd be private property, so it. Outside of the right of
I
way.
can sell it to you for $1.
Yeah, I tell, I trust that,
Seriously, like,
yeah,
you can have it strip my property, I don't care.
yeah,
It's just getting to the point where it's highly irritating.
yeah, I bet.
So Dave, is there a ditch all the way down through there? Or is it just
Was,
one? So how long?
You know, when you get down to the bottom of all this,
Can I approach you guys, because I can show you, if you're having questions about this.
How long you lived there?
I bought it in August 2017,
And you can feel free to email to me too.
so
That's, yeah,
this is what was the work that was done, sorry. This was the work that was done, and then they stopped. No, that's the game.
And that's at-
They had to stop.
so Dave, that's at the the end of the right of way.
And then you can see that it's supposed to go down here, wrong way. And so I just do like a little stroll that I can just show you the picture. So this whole length of my yard is supposed to be that gully, and it's overgrown, and I cleared it out to here. You can see the difference in vegetation. So in the spring, I went in there and pulled out all the vegetation, I dug it all up. And without it getting dug up in rocks and stuff, it's just gonna keep doing this, and it's not gonna drain. I mean, it's so much vegetation.
Yeah, there's, plenty there. Anything else, Dave?
Yeah, so VLCT and the insurance carrier kind of put it on to the attorneys down there.
Yeah.
And they said that you get a need for it. The question is gonna become, how much of this is going to do around town? Same issue on Dave, it's never, I'm not saying I don't want to. I'm just saying.
Well, that's gonna be my next question is how many, because it's always one of the questions we have to ask, if we do something for somebody, we gotta be prepared maybe to do it for 4,000 other homes, so we just have to be careful of that, or nothing, 4,000 homes.
That's a common,
2,000.
it's a common issue when a developer gets a permit to put in a development like that. And maybe there's a site plan that the DRB and maybe even the state, if it's new enough of a development to have received a stormwater permit, there's a site plan that shows the ditches and how they run and where they're supposed to go, and maybe there's a pond, maybe there isn't. In your case, your development predates the need for ponds. If it was built today, you'd have probably a gravel wetland on that portion of your property. And there's usually conditions that go along with development review board approvals that say, the stormwater infrastructure, or whatever they called it back then is it's on the homeowner. So we've got a bunch of older developments that have been bought and sold in so many times that no one knows much beyond the deed that they were given when they bought the home. So we've got a bunch of like old stormwater ditches like what you have on your property that haven't been maintained in 20 years or so because no one was ever told to do it when they bought their houses. The developer just built it per the plans and then didn't want to deal with anybody long enough to say, hey, that ditch, you got to keep it clear. So it's grown up, it's filled in with sediment. I can think of, I tried to sit and think to myself and list them in my head. I can think of 7 different properties other than yours in town that have a very similar story of cross culverts dumping significant and amounts of water under their property. The most I've ever seen in my 6.5 or so years on the board is we've bought material and then sold it to private property owners at cost. Like that's as far as we've ever gone before, is trying to save people money on material. I know what.
But to say people don't start blocking. Not saying we're gonna do that, but like you guys are making a
It's gonna be
situation.
our problem, to take care of the problem. So-
Right, you're making a situation that people are just gonna start blocking it off, and then you just spend all this taxpayer money cleaning out these ditches for the water to go where back up the hill or wherever you put the property.
It just overflow into the street if you blocked it off. That's,
And then who's probably back to the.
well, then it would be, not to go down that route, but like legally speaking, and I'm not saying that I don't want to sit down with Dave and explore all these issues around town and figure out if there's a finite number, but if somebody were to block public water that backed up into a road,
We're talking property, so.
Yeah.
Release the flow, and then I'll put in 10 tons of gravel, whatever, and build it up. But the water,
if the water backs up into,
Right now, it's.
yeah, it'd
So I'm
be
gonna
really
get
litigious at that point.
More information from Dave on what our options
But-
are, just always, because again, if it was just the magic pen would take care of it, the only issue is there are a lot of others, so we gotta make sure we're
oh, you understand.
being equitable with it.
I'm
So-
sorry for getting you, I just.
No,
Well, we don't have the right of way through there right now, so we don't own it, so our big concern is if we send our crew in and we aren't covered under our liability insurance. Yeah, and then the second tier of that is how many of these issues are there, and do we have a staff big enough to cover all of them within a short order?
But I'm gonna stop us now, we're a little bit over our 3 minutes, sorry, I appreciate it. Paul, a question on this or a different comment?
It's a comment on this.
Okay.
Go back to 1908 or 2008, 2006, when they developed the property above. The acres developed the property up above. And there was a lot of discussion about this very problem, because there's a brook that runs down on the south
Yeah, you-
side of that development.
Yeah, you can see it.
You may find a lot of insight into the responsibility for that water problem there, because that was a big issue when the BRB was discussing that.
You remember, you probably don't happen to remember what date, you said 2008, but I'm just wondering if we can look back.
The BRB went on planning probably about 2007, 2008. Jeff, you were there, some of it, I remember. Maybe that was before, back in the 90s, I
Mhm.
probably. lot of discussion about that, and there were some resolutions that came out of that. And the answer may be right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Yeah, just, and again, I hope you guys understand, because I think at this point, because we're way over the 3 minutes and I'm really bad at that, but I'd like to have Dave and Sean look back and maybe touch base with you or with you, Paul, just to have all the information. I just want to know, I think we need to know what our options are.
I guess one of the points I was trying to get to was a lot of times in decision letters, it's on behalf of every home of a development to deal with an issue like that. So it might already exist in black and white where, you know, there's a drainage, because that road didn't start out as a public road. The town came in after it was totally built out and took it over at one point or another, and that's where we defined our own right of way, which didn't include your ditch. Today, it might have, if we took it over today, we might have had that conversation and included it. But there might be something in black and white that says every home in Ashton Drive contributes to maintaining a roadway or, you know, a common element, in which case this might fall under the definition of being common because it's taking the entire roadway worth of water. So we're just trying to like cast a wide net and see.
Is that totally on your land or is it shared with?
It's right on the
I
line.
believe it's all on my land, but it is right on the property boundaries between the two homes.
So your wife's not in here right now, but my personal feeling is that, and I think the board basically shares this, is that there's no one more important than someone that comes here asking for help.
I
You
agree.
take the effort to come to this meeting. I think we will do what we can do to look into it, to figure out if there's anything that the town can do to help you.
I totally believe that. That's why we're here.
And hopefully we can come to some kind of a resolution that's beneficial to you and the town can do.
Yep.
But we just, maybe an easement, maybe whatever needs to be done. At least present something back to you as an option. if it's possible.
That's it.
Yeah, and like if VLCT's attorneys come back and say that's a no-go under your insurance policy for X, Y, or Z, and we need an easement, we can work with you to talk about whether or not we're in a position to be able to take one to do that work, or if it would totally tax our public works department to no end. And if that were the case, I would look to community development, you know, planning and zoning, and I would open up all the permits for that project and any area that around it as newly developed that might contribute water, and I would see if there's anything there that could help.
Okay.
We want to be your partner in making sure that you get the right to enjoy your property.
No,
And you know, it's just, there's so many pitfalls when we operate with public money.
I appreciate it.
Last word, Dave?
Yeah, so we did get a response from the LC.
Mhm.
And it was that it could get some kind of a legal easement. Or either a temporary or permanent. And just that it protects the town in case of much like a that information is shown.
Yeah,
What are you
please.
guessing it needs to be excavated and stoned?
No. I'm definitely.
Yeah.
So you're not.
Great, make sure that it's. Yeah. But it's also, like Hillary said, really often, we would just really tear out that side.
Yeah, let's work to find a solution.
All right.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comments here in the room, and then look through Zoom? Please stay.
Have a good night.
Appreciate it. David, did you have your hand up? Yep, please.
For the record, I'm David Bray. I've been a 33-year resident of the town. I have 3 questions I'd like to ask tonight, and I'm going to try to keep it under that 3-minute rule. The first one is on the 3-minute rule. Are the 3 minutes for one topic or are they per topic?
I believe it was per topic. I believe that's what it says in the thing. Do you have 9 minutes worth? No, like.
No. I was just,
3, right?
I was just
Yeah, I believe it's per topic.
per topic. Okay. I just didn't want to get
If I-
called on it.
Maybe you're misremembering that.
You got
but I
that
think
one
that's
done
what it
under
is.
3 minutes.
I didn't want to get called on point of order again, so. Last week, when we had the meeting on stormwater, someone mentioned that if the property was in non-compliance, that it would turn out to be a defect on the deed.
So just thinking of solutions, would that be a claim for title insurance? I believe it would have to have been in violation prior to the purchase of the property. It can't be, they buy the property, they buy the title insurance, so it would have to have been anything that happened prior to them buying it. If you have title insurance and then something else happens after the fact, it probably wouldn't count, but I just, as a curiosity, I mean, could there?
Yeah, I
be
don't know. I mean, I'm not an attorney. My thought would be to just the example of though, you buy a home free and clear.
Yeah.
And then you take out a mortgage on it. And then you stop paying it and try to sell your house. I mean, there might be a title issue that you created, during, since you first purchased it.
Dave, the only
But
thing
I don't know.
about
Yeah.
title insurance, I've looked into purchasing when I purchased property, is that there's a whole bunch of writing in there that limits their liability.
Mhm.
It's very, and Brendan may know more about it, he's into that more, but it's very limited in what it'll cover. And even the defects that it covers have to be of a certain type. I'm not an attorney either. Attorney could probably answer that easy, but it's not like some blanket thing. There's a lot of things that it doesn't cover.
And I
So,
think
like-
Brendan's assertion wasn't that it would be a title
So
issue,
there's-
but it could be.
I'd have to go back in time and like reread all my old planning commission meeting notes that I have stored away, but Ned Connell at the time had an example from one of the Carolinas of how stormwater issues in the development had never been considered a title defect, but they reached a certain deadline that the state had set to make certain improvements, and if certain developments didn't meet that deadline, then they did become title defects that affected saleability of property. But as far as title insurance goes, unfortunately, most people that buy a home and finance it, they see title insurance on their HUD statement or their closing disclosure, and they think they're covered. That title insurance is usually for the bank. You have to specifically ask for homeowners title insurance to receive most coverage. A lot of title defects that are covered under title insurance policies meant to protect the bank only cover, like, let's say you live in a development and you all are supposed to have the same set of language in a deed, but three of you have 3 deeds from 3 different attorneys that all say different things. Like, they would come in and straighten that out with a straw man transaction and redefine all the deeds in the development and then deed them back to the homeowners. But I've never seen title insurance step up to do anything beyond paperwork. I've suggested that to people who have properties not in a certain development, but that receive a ton of stormwater from a failed pond that I think we all know what I'm talking about. And that gentleman looked into it and was told to pound sand. Because even though the basement's flooded and the backyard's unusable, he could still sell his house if he wanted to. So my comment about marketability of title was more related to whatever Ned had said back, I want to say in 2018 or 19 about, if we don't hit a certain deadline, the state could choose to extend our 2036 phosphorus mitigation plan goal could be extended to 2041, but they could say, if we don't hit it by then we're going to start affecting marketability of title and pass language in any random bill that says, if you've got an inactive stormwater permit in a development or one that's pending, that you can't sell until it's cleared, which would be an extreme, but it's possible. So that's all I was alluding to. There might even be language built in from the EPA mandate to the state that sets that out in stone. I haven't gone that far down into that kind of deferment of responsibility in the paper trail that followed, but I bet you that it's more than possible.
Yeah, so I
It's a
guess
scary prospect.
don't check with us for a legal opinion. I guess we don't know, but do you have another
I had just
question?
one other quick one. Sorry, that went over 3 minutes, but this one is short.
But it was our fault.
Does the town have a master plan on where we are today, where we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and what we have to do in between to get there? Or are we just on autopilot? And if we do have something, would it come under, I was kind of looking at the Development Review Board, Northwest Regional Planning, or our Planning Commission that might do something like that? And maybe there isn't a value of doing it, but I just, I'm sitting there. A couple of things that I've thought about is that, getting involved in economic development. And then I'm saying, does the town really want economic development?
So are we happy with our unemployment rate that we've got right now? Are we happy with the way the, if we bring economic development, they'll put a burden on the schools. So, what's our thinking of where we want to go and where we want to be? And is there anything out there like that that the public could read?
Yeah, I'll just,
Town plan.
yeah, I'd say, that's what I was doing on here. So I just brought up the town plan. It's like last updated June 15, 2020. It's right on the, right on our website. You go under, the charters and policies and everything else. So. That's that's a big part of it. I know a lot of other pieces are encompassed in, like the, kind of indirectly, but. Here I am with that. I forget stuff, equipment replacement, schedules and things like that, because that's all relates to a lot of this too. And then there's what's the other one, the capital.
We have a
improvement
capital
plan.
improvement program. The town plans developed mostly by the planning commission. And then it's approved by the select board, and then regional planning has an approval over that too, which we've had points of contention with regional in the past. Over that, but sometimes we set a goal that doesn't match the regional plan's goal, and we argue over that and squabble until one side gives in. But yeah, so that's a whole process. And it used to be the town plan was only good for 5 years, but now it's good for 8. So I would guess that in 3 or 4 years we'll start the process of rewriting it. And we could find that since that plan was written pre-COVID, that a lot of it or some of it doesn't necessarily make sense in the new world, but.
Okay, but that's online, so I can go just to the web.
It is, yep.
And
Yep,
check
I
that
can
out.
be able
Okay,
to,
thank you.
Forward it to you. Thank you. Any other public comments?
Who are?
Paul, can you come up to the microphone?
Yeah,
Because
just,
Jen thinks
just
it's
so,
okay here.
yeah, sorry. Thank you, John.
Yeah, who are our representatives to the Regional Planning Commission?
That's Al.
Al's up there. He's
Yeah,
been
Al.
on it
Yep.
forever.
And Meg, I think, right?
Yeah, and Megan.
Megan.
And how about our planning commission and our planning director? Why aren't they? Or one of them anyways, because whoever's on that planning commission,
Megan's.
Megan is.
Megan.
he's on the planning commission.
She's on the RPC.
What I found when I was on there, and I was secretary for a while, it's a good group to work with. But you're in situations where the people that are there and casting votes and casting opinions have to be responsible to somebody. And that means usually to the voters, because you say things there, you work for things there, that you cannot be going back and forth to the select board, say, can I do this? Manager, maybe the manager should be a
I do
member of the
actually
regional
attend.
planning.
I attend a good chunk of planning commission meetings.
Hmm?
I attend a good chunk of the planning commission meetings.
No, the regional planning.
Oh, the regional
Yeah,
ones?
When you,
Okay.
when you're on that
Maybe
board, you're speaking for the town and you're voting on things for the town. And you need to have some responsibility to the town taxpayers. And appointees don't have that, so they can't make decisions. They can't discuss with the authority of you.
So you're suggesting it become an elected position? Is that what I'm hearing you
I'm
say?
suggesting that the person who's there is somebody who has authority in the town, the manager, there are 2 people on it. I believe we have 2 now still.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
One would say one is the manager and one be a member of the select board.
I was on it years ago. I think I was a selectman when I was on it. And my disturbing realization was you had all these other little towns that basically, I think I was on it when we were doing Walmart. And we didn't have a lot of friends at that time. So it was kind of discouraging. Plus I had to give my seat up to one lady's dog. When I got to the meeting late, there was a dog in my chair. She had a little dog in my chair.
That was the last straw.
And I pulled the chair out. She goes, well, my dog's here. So I had to go get another chair and stuff in somewhere. That kind of soured me to the whole. But I mean, a lot of these other representatives from the other towns, I mean, they don't really know why you want to do what you want to do, and most of them are against anything that us or the city wanted to do. So I just didn't find it a lovely experience.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
That was a good question.
Al, do you want to come up?
I've been a member for many years. I would disagree that I don't know what's going on in town. We have confidence to make recommendations to the larger committee. I'm Al Bojell. But I wanted to say a little bit about the regional plan, this regional plan. Regional plan is governed by state law, which is, I forget, Act 100, I believe. And so there's very little opportunity to variation, and the state every year says what it wants to accomplish across the entire state. And so within that, as the former member or commissioner would come back to the town and talk to people and learn what was necessary. The regional plan itself is much more of a very wide-ranging document that allows a lot of flexibility, but it does, as pointed out by, there is controversy in it within different towns, mainly because you have such a diverse group of individuals trying to do what not only they think is best, but for the common good. And it's a very difficult process, but nonetheless, we have to abide by the law. The law insists that we have it. And if the state doesn't, if the Franklin and North Grand Isle don't have it, and we don't have it, that excludes us from a lot of federal funds. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't,
Right.
but think of money.
Well, the last time I was there, we had brought our town plan to the whole group, and they basically denied it. At which point I told them to go to hell, we were approving it anyway, and walked out the door. That's my last hurrah to regional planning commission.
Yeah, I think the plan only has to do pass by the majority one.
Well, we weren't passing.
But anyway,
so.
it's a complicated issue, but I disagree with you that I said to myself, and maybe did you have the representative? Yeah, too. The mention of the doctor of the thing. And then we also have Sarah Hadley, who's a member of the Fairfax on the board, which is the prime resident. So if anything, we have three people that are very much of the town.
The problem is that
Yeah, I'm gonna stop and move because I know we're well past our three here. Sorry about that. Do we have anyone else who has another comment? Yep, please.
My name is Pat Vincent. I've been a resident for over 50 years in the town, and I live beside the old town hall. I see nothing has been looked at on the town hall roof with all this rain we've had. But my main concern is I think the town needs to put their brakes on developing too fast. I read the newspaper tonight about the schools, and now they don't even have enough room. I thought we had plenty of school room, and now they're thinking they need more for pre-K. 3 and 4-year-olds. So
Sure.
I think something needs to be looked into. Our taxes are terrible. School tax, look what most of our bulk is school tax.
I agree.
Something has to happen. It can't keep going up every damn year. And not only that, I want to know about my $162.50 that I pay for runoff on my roof. Farmers, I heard, are exempt. You were supposed to look into it, so I was hoping by now somebody's looked into it. Because I think everybody should pay even farmers, a flat rate of $50 per person in this town. And that would bring you in a lot of money. That's all I got to say.
I'll just touch on it.
Can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I was on the school board years ago, and
Hold on.
So,
when we
Yeah.
built that school up there.
yeah, I was on it.
And we, the original plan was to make it bigger than it was, so we wouldn't have to come back in the state, cut it right off. And my son's class, and he's 37 now, was the biggest class we ever had in that school. It's the largest class, and it's been going the other way ever since.
Oh, it's terrible.
So Pat, I would recommend you go to the Maple City, or not Maple City, Maple Run School District meetings. And voice your opinions there because they have very low attendance and people voicing their opinions on the tax rate.
They didn't like me when I was on that school board.
You should
Trust
go
me.
attend a meeting and watch it. It's,
Oh, I know.
I'm not gonna comment on it, but.
There's a lot that goes on that shouldn't. And it needs to they need to get a handle on it.
Yeah.
And the town needs to.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Pat.
have a comment. That's how you use 3 minutes. She said a lot in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of ground.
She did.
Thanks, Pat.
Any other public comments? Almost got to everybody here. Anyone on Zoom for public comment? I think we're, all right, we'll close public comment then, and we'll turn it over to you, Sean.
Okay, first up, we have the Declaration of Inclusion proposed for St. Albans. It's really simply just at its brass tacks, a forward-thinking statement, it's basically to the state that we are a community of inclusion that doesn't close our doors to anybody. It shows, again, we're looking towards the future, and it's essentially as much of a reflection of kind of where we're looking and as ourselves, and also it doesn't require really a whole lot afterwards in terms of obligations. The city of St. Albans is already a member. There's 117 other localities in Vermont that have already accepted this declaration. And it's Mr. Al Wakefield and Bob Harnish are here as well to answer questions if you have any. And that's the simple summary of it.
Thank you. Did Mr. Harnish or Mr. Wakefield wish to speak?
I think he was muted.
I'm
You're on mute, yeah.
Okay.
Bob
Now,
currently is on mute. Are you
Okay,
there, Bob? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll just say in kind of summary that there's nothing political in this statement. It's basically a call for decency and kindness to all of our fellow townspeople without regard for the differences between us. And if I can paraphrase just a bit of the statement, it says in simple language, we reject discrimination. We welcome all people to our town. We want residents present and future to feel they belong and are safe in our community. And the town commits to fair and equal treatment of everyone, their employees as well as townspeople. So those four statements kind of sum up the declaration or the statement that we're suggesting, but a few towns have added a word here or there or changed a word, and one or two towns have actually written their own. But basically, this is the model that most of the 116 or 17 towns have adopted. So we'll answer any further questions.
Back over to us. I'll just mention a couple things. Thanks for joining us tonight, obviously. I do remember back in 2021, one of our closer neighbor towns, Franklin, passed this, and I saw it in the newspaper. And the words itself seem pretty obvious. You're right. I don't think the words on here are very political at all. I think I mentioned back in 2021 that it's something we should look at and maybe maybe I mentioned it again another time, maybe in 2022. I don't know. But just a couple of thoughts. So, I mean, on the one hand, in some ways, maybe it's not necessary, right? Like, I feel like we're doing this. We have a lot of this language in a lot of our personnel policies. In fact, we're going to get to that next. I think Section 4 lists a lot of this language. It even adds a few others. Of course, on the other hand, it is obvious, it seems like this is something that I can certainly get behind. I can agree with, I think, just about every single word in here. And so for that, if it takes 5 minutes, we can declare this and move forward. Now, I know along with this, though, we did get a lot of other information. I checked out the website, and there's just one thing I wanted to ask you about because it gave me pause, which is on the facts page, number 8. It says, if our town adopts a declaration, is some form of implementation expected? And the answer is yes. And so it kind of gives me pause. I want to make sure that if we're
declaring something, because I would think we're just declaring this. This is just my opinion, and I'm sure we'll hear from everyone else. Just these 3 paragraphs, I'm 100% behind. I just worry about what it means. I think Sean even mentioned we're joining a group. So it just gives me pause. That's all. If it's just this piece here, I'm good. I don't know if you want to talk on number 8, the implementation expectations, or if not, we can hear from the other board members as well.
Al, I can
You
do
want-
that or you can do that.
Sure, and let me do it. If you go to the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion website, there is a section on implementation, and I think as Sean said, what you're trying to do is to establish an environment which is welcoming, and you don't necessarily do that by just sitting back and doing nothing. That may or may not be what you have done. I don't mean you specifically, but every town up to now. And so this is saying, if you're going to sell toothpaste, I guess, and you want to differentiate your toothpaste from the other brand, you look at what your assets are and you market those. And so this is saying you take your assets and you say, our town is special. We want people to come to town. We don't want unplanned, indiscriminate growth, but we need people to bring businesses and to bring their expertise and their families to round out the community, to help it grow and prosper. And so the governor has said that's important to Vermont, and 116 cities have said that as well. And so very specifically in the guide that we furnished on the website, it's some very simple things like posting the declaration, which you have, I think, in front of you or near you on your website. We have some plaques which a number of towns have put on their doors as well. It means in your newsletter or your postings, whatever you have going out, restating, in fact, that you are a welcoming town. Beyond that, there are several other things which you can take. The state has a program which is free of charge called the Ideal Program, which a number of towns are participating in. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns, which you mentioned earlier, also has a program which is free of charge for those towns that want to move more affirmatively on the Declaration of Inclusion. So there's nothing the town has to do, but I think, as I use the toothpaste analogy, which may or may not be the greatest, you want to do things which help bring people to your town so that you can grow economically and prosper over time. So there's nothing that you're obligated to do. The spirit of the declaration is that we would hope that you would move affirmatively, but there's nothing that says you have to, in fact, do anything.
Thank you. Anyone else, any other questions or comments? People are?
I just don't see why we gotta join a group to do it. Why can't you just, write our own statement, post it around if that's what it takes.
Is there a so-called group? I think that's, well, I don't know if you could hear Jack. He sometimes sits back a little far from the microphone here, but he was just basically wondering why we would have to join a group to make a declaration like this. Is it an actual group that we're joining?
No, there's no group. No, we mentioned that 116 towns, they're all individual, just like you. The select boards, the town manager is in many instances taking the lead, or the select board chair is taking the lead, or a member of the community is taking the lead to come to say this is important for us to consider and to adopt. There's no group, there's no collusion, collaboration of any kind. I can tell you, and Bob can tell you, that every town is very distinctly different and very distinctly unique. And even the governor independently proclaiming a declaration of inclusion for the state and hosting an inclusion week the second week in Vermont acted independently. But the Vermont Chamber of Commerce has said this is very important for Vermont. The Vermont League of Cities and Towns has said this is very important for Vermont. The Vermont Council on Rural Development just last week, gave an award to the Declaration of Inclusion Initiative, saying this is very important for Vermont. But no, there's no group that I know of. And as Bob said earlier, this is totally non-political. It's not left or right. It's not Democrat. If you think about it as a citizen and as a business person and a person in a town that, has vacant storefronts and retail facilities that are wanting and churches that are vacant, you begin to see why something like this is important, that we do everything we can to make sure that people are welcome to join us here in Vermont.
Thank you. And I think I saw Al correct. It does say on the site, VLCT had a legal analysis, just make, it's not, there's no liability created for the town in signing a declaration like this. Is that correct?
That's totally correct. Ted Brady, had the legal department take a look at the statement as you see it. And the statement that you see it, incidentally, is a statement which Bob Harnish, who's the creator of this initiative, brought from Franklin. He has a member of his family that in fact is the chair of the select board in Franklin. So yeah, no, there's no legal liability. All the legal staff stands behind this of VLCT.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone?
I think I have a comment. It's not directed at this, but I think that as a town, we're already obligated to uphold the laws of the state and of the town and our ordinances. And I think much of what we're talking about here, other than a public declaration, we're already doing and we're already obligated to do. We already obligated to do in the fact that, if we see prejudice in some policy, it has to be addressed. Like you can't do that. Like by law and also by moral compass, you can't do that. So I don't really see what this adds. Like, it's not really an addition to anything that we shouldn't already, I guess it's stating the obvious. I think, and that's just my opinion.
I would say too, though, like on grant applications or something like that, that's kind of where my brain goes as a, I guess maybe a straw that breaks the camel's back on something that, would be considered as standing, in lockstep with a neighboring community, that we are inclusive. It's for us to be able to say, hey, we made this declaration, we're with 100+ other communities in Vermont, and it didn't cost us a dime or even ask us to change our behavior, I think is my angle with it.
If I can just add a comment, I think, there's power in numbers, and we're thinking of the economic benefit for the whole state. If we can say the vast majority of towns in the state, hopefully all of the towns in the state, have endorsed a statement such as the one we're proposing, that sends a message to outside folks who may want to come to Vermont for the lovely simple life that we lead here, and the environment and the perhaps the slower pace than they're used to, and we want to make this a statement, and the more towns that endorse this, the stronger the message we send.
Well, I mean, again, if we're just look to me, this is just me talking. I'm not talking for anyone else. These words, I mean, I can get behind it if we're passing these words to, again, make a declaration, but we're not necessarily joining a group. Personally, I would be in favor of it. As they are here. I think they're very plain. To me, it's non-political. As long as I'm taking just these words as they are, I mean, that's where I am here. But I'll leave it for anyone else. If anyone else has any questions or any motions or any places they want to go with this. Yep. Okay.
I'm not really ready to make a decision on that, you know, take some thought. I think we can do it on our own. I don't,
Okay. So Jack, you make a motion to,
I'm not making any motion. Just
Okay.
saying.
okay. Sounds like Sean, maybe we are, you saying you want more time to consider possibly?
I mean, I just saw this Friday. or
Yep,
whatever.
it's true. We just got it. Okay. Sean, I guess we're gonna table it for now. Sure. What it sounds like, so. Thank you, Bob and Al. I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Well, thank you. Do you think you'll be taking it up again? Well, a lot of times when folks say they're tabling it, that means that they're really just kind of not going to think about it. Does this mean you're going to think about it and come back and perhaps vote on it, or are you tabling it to get rid of it?
I'll keep you updated on that one.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
time to think about it. I'll get back to you.
Okay, all right. Appreciate your time, really. It's you're giving it some thought, and that's what we've asked communities to do, and many have. So thank you very much for your time, and we hope you'll move affirmatively. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Al.
you. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Joe, we're on the personnel policy, I
Yeah.
believe.
The only real thing here, we didn't accept the whole personnel policy because of the vehicle policy. It didn't kind of accurately reflect our fleet situation. So now that that's in, it's very simple. I think it just accurately reflects and covers damages and procedures
And I think just as I read it, correct me if I'm wrong here,
Yeah.
Sean, but last time we had a big discussion on the vehicle part and the way it was structured, the policy, the original policy we looked at was if you maybe check these 3 boxes, it almost sounded like you get a company car or a town car.
Yeah.
The new policy is much more with at least the spirit of what I thought it was, which is
Yeah.
we may make a town car available. You may, as a town person, if you have town business, you may be able to sign it out. And that's essentially it in a nutshell. Is that correct?
that's what
Sean?
drive it responsibly.
Okay.
We don't have a town car yet.
Correct. Yeah.
And we don't have one and we don't have any imminent plans right now to get one. Is that correct?
Except for potential DPW.
Potentially be DPW. And I know this was recommended by the attorneys to have this separate vehicle policy. So that's kind of where it came
Yeah,
from.
because it was
we have
referenced
it
in our
case we
personnel
need it.
policy, so we didn't have one to reference. So it's
Yeah.
essentially just checking the box.
Yes, we have it in case we need it.
Mhm.
Okay, any other discussion on the personnel policy, the grievance policy or the vehicle policy?
Look good.
All right, any motions anyone want to make?
What, to approve it?
To, accept all 3 of them?
I'll make that.
We've been trying this the last, I think,
Yeah.
3 meetings, so.
Yeah.
I think we've got all the ducks
Yeah.
taken care of now, all the questions. answered.
You want to pass
Okay.
all 3 at the same time.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All right, are all in favor? Say aye, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Nope. All right, thank you. I think we have that. We can sign it tonight. And Sean, back to you.
Yes, so this is just following up on our special stormwater meeting that we had last week. So me and Dave have had quite a few meetings over the last week or so discussing how we want to move forward with the stormwater situation. So we know that there's a good chunk of funds that we have. The initial, I guess, drafted formula I've come up with that fits Tanglewood and I think is also equitable for other projects moving forward is that the HOA or neighborhood associated with this project must match at least 10% of the total cost, and that the town must receive a grant towards that project as well. So 2 of those boxes need to be checked. I'd also like to float.
Say that again, Sean, just to make sure. So it's got a minimum of 10%
Yes.
matched by the HOA or copay, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then
that also that the town needs to receive a grant for the project. So that kind of spreads out and extends the funds for as much as we can.
so we're
Extend
because as I read through it, I'm hoping we're in agreement for this year, and then I know some other people have some good ideas for funding in future years that might be better. But for this year, moving forward with something that's going to encourage the state to fund us, so to speak, but also we're moving ahead, trying to help these neighborhoods without overextending all the other neighbors who don't live in those areas. So if 10% was a number, I'm just thinking out loud, then if that means the rest of the town is paying for just 10% of the project, which was what that would be, correct?
Well,
The
HOA.
stormwater, well, the HOA paying 10 and then the rest of the town,
No,
right?
it's-
The
yeah,
stormwater
the
matching
stormwater,
at about
yes.
10.
Yeah.
And hoping the state, and federal government can do 80%.
Right, so that's essentially what both the Clyde Allen and Tanglewood projects both check that box. And also it's important to keep in mind that the timeline, correct me if I'm wrong here, that the state has provided for all the projects is pretty much front loaded in terms of expenses. So all the big, most expensive projects are gonna come in right off the books the first few years. So as that number drops, smaller projects, if they can't, if a neighborhood can't get the 10%, I would also suggest that perhaps we can start a revolving loan fund for those communities to access the 10%. If it's a smaller project, you know, it's still a lot of money to ask somebody, a neighborhood to put together. So we could work with a revolving loan fund. We could use some of our ARPA funds for that. But it's just some food for thought on that front.
And that's an idea I know we as a board have talked about a little bit before, right? Taking, say, $200,000 or whatever the number is from our ARPA fund, setting up a fund where town residents basically with some kind of approved use, like fixing their stormwater, could borrow that money and pay it back with interest over 5 years or 10 years, correct? Right. So then that fund should hopefully be able to carry on more than just stormwater, but and we could always return it back if we needed to, or wanted to.
Don't you think though, before we get into all this, we gotta get some sort of guarantee from the state that they're gonna step up?
I don't think we're ever gonna get that. Though.
That's
I don't think we can do it, but we can't do it. Why are we gonna do it? They've got no, I mean, you heard them the other night, they're not gonna fine you, they're not gonna, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it really wasn't up to any of the three that
I
we met
realize
with
that.
last week. I mean, I would argue that, let's say the state didn't have that 2036 deadline, that it would still be a project that, you know, would recommend that we try to help. You know, even just like, it's on a much grander scale or smaller scale, but with Heather before, you know, it's still a project that I'd like to think that we would address either way.
And I don't see a problem with addressing those projects, but I think we need to be clear about why we're doing it. But I mean, fixing their stormwater problem. It's not to get the lake. That's to take care of a town problem on the private land.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
You could make the same.
Well, I mean, I know, but yeah. So anyways, I just think like the goals of the goals of what we're doing are a little bit misconstrued, I think, in terms of I mean, so if we're gonna try to spend $5 to $10 million to cut 65 kilograms of phosphorus going into the lake,
The quote's 3.5 million, but
for the whole
Yeah.
thing. $3.5 million.
Still a lot of money.
I don't care. $1 million.
Right,
It
it's a
got
lot of money.
65 kilograms, 155 pounds of
yeah,
phosphorus out of the lake, then I would hope that we would do that work for another reason. Like to make the citizens of the town happy. Like, cause that's actually gonna have more mileage than what you're gonna see in the lake.
but if we do, we'll just have to give the grant monies back.
No,
The Clyde Allen,
I would imagine
a
we'll
huge
use the
one.
grant money.
We'd have to use it on the project, or at least the Clyde Allen grant, we'd have to use for the project, that type of thing. So it's not necessarily. that
I'm
we
not
have-
saying that we don't
Yeah.
do those projects. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, especially the ones that we have money,
Yeah,
but there's a whole bunch of projects that we
Mhm.
don't have money.
right.
And
And this would kind of give, I believe, time to, you know, get to this. And any extra funds that we might have, we could use on design for the future projects while these ones get done. So if we could kind of check all the boxes, kill two birds with one stone, do the first two projects. With any extra funds, we could start designing the subsequent projects, so we're still paying attention to.
Yeah, I feel like if we have, again, some precedent set where
Yeah.
we're expecting and asking the state to chip in. And if we can use the money we have now to, because we have it for, you know, those first few projects, and then I know work with the Grace Brook one over there too. And I feel like if we have a list and we go through, and if the state's not chipping in, then we have to hold. But if we show that we're using the money they're giving us, and hopefully it's most of it, and to take care of some of these projects, I mean, because you're right, I mean, again, like I mentioned it last time, I mean, it seems like magic to me, you know, we're gonna do this and it's gonna get better. I'm not, I just not a scientist, I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems like magic. So when Jeff says maybe it won't, you know, it's tough.
So I
It's
don't,
tough for
I
me to
don't
know.
know. So on number 2 here, under our discussion, it says we must receive grant funding towards a project, but doesn't talk about any percentage of the project being covered by state or federal funds. Is that because we don't know, or is that because?
Yeah, this is simply like kind of like a baseline rule. So if we get 0 grant funds or 0 grant, then by these stipulations, we wouldn't be able to move.
We don't move forward.
So, I mean, they've been giving us what, 25,000 a year or something, that's theirs.
Like
And
460.
I considered the green,
Yeah.
you know, so, you know, it bothers me that we spend all this money on this stormwater. And we get an event like last month where every sewer plant in the state runs over. There's your, whatever phosphorus you tried to reduce right through the roof. I mean, it's just like pedaling up, you know, trying to pedal up the river without a paddle. You know, I think the stormwater, the whole stormwater business is just another tax. And we're just collecting money, and we could get a whole pile of money and not have enough from the state or the homeowners to do anything. We're just very frustrated, you know, we're trying to keep our tax rate down, and this is just a tax. You can call it a fee, but it's a tax.
Thoughts, Chad?
So, yeah, I definitely have thoughts. I'm trying to think about how to present my thoughts, but why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we just use, so because of all this stuff, the meeting last week was very uninsightful in some areas for me. Like, it seemed like the state wasn't being very hard-nosed about things, and well, if you don't get it done, we'll just extend the time horizon. And from that perspective, I'm wondering why do we have a stormwater utility? I don't mind the ordinance. It's the funding mechanism that I don't like. Why wouldn't we just use LOT money for that? That to me seems to be way more equitable than a property fee. And because that doesn't affect any particular property owner. It's just if you spend money in the town, there's a good chance that some of that money is going to be allocated to stormwater as projects arise, instead of building a pool of money that then we will look to spend on whatever we look to spend it on. And so I've stewed over this since that meeting, because the stormwater utility is essentially leveling a fee against every property owner who's already getting leveled every year for everything. And why not use LOT and ARPA funds to fund this a little bit ambiguous project? I know we have plans in place, but it just, like, engineering's not right on them. It's just gonna be it's gonna take a lot longer than we think it's gonna take, and it's probably gonna take more money. And I don't think the taxpayer should have to fund that directly. I would rather see LOT money used if it's possible, may not be possible. And then the people shopping at Walmart are paying for it. And that I'm much more, is it gonna hurt the town? Are we not gonna be able to build things at the same rate? Probably, because the money's got to come from somewhere.
For sure.
But the money cannot continue to come from the taxpayers for things like this that are rather indirect in how they affect all the citizens of the town. And that's, I mean, that's what I'm thinking about. And I know that other people on the board may share different views of that, but I think that we need to fix that. And that. So.
Jeff Johnson, right? Have we reached out to the state reps at all about this issue recently? Have we ever? You remember?
Yeah, I mean, I have. So my thought on it is there needs to be a coalition. I mean, I think there's only we were the 7th stormwater utility in the entire state when we formed ours. And we formed it because it allowed us to levy a significant amount of fees against V-Trans, AOT for federal and state highways, like 67 grand a year worth. And then you get 25,000 a year from the state just for having a utility. So it was right off the bat, it was about 90 grand on a 400 something $1,000 budget that came directly from the state. And then it took the burden, which would have been about 4.5 to 5 cents on a property tax rate, which on a house valued at, 250,000, it would have been roughly $125 a year. And it allowed us to reduce it to 50 because it took so much of the cost sharing burden, put some of it on the state, and then it put some on the railroad, which never pays any tax. I think our whole revenue budget for the entire town figures 4,000 a year with the rail tax. And then it allows nonprofits like Northwestern Medical Center that sits at any given time on $50 million in liquid and invested cash, and it places a burden on them to pay for their part of the problem. I think we need to form a coalition of stormwater utilities that are in, I think we should start with ones that are in small towns like ours. And we should then look at the list of MS4s and see if there are any towns that are similarly situated that just haven't gotten to the point where they formed a utility, or maybe they did decide to place the burden on the property tax and collect more from homeowners. We should all get in a room, maybe with our, select board chairs and managers or administrators, and have a discussion as to what we expect as a group from the state. Us having a conversation with 3 state officials over what we perceive to be inadequate funding primarily doesn't hold much weight with, I think, a lot of people in state government. But if we issued a joint statement of some kind saying that there are 7 or 8 of us, or however many there are now, and together we have $48 million worth of projects that have to be completed by 2036, and all together we receive $25,000 times whatever the amount is, and that's it, and we need more money. And then I think that enables us as a group to pool some funds together to hire lobbyists. I don't think you get anything through the legislature in this day and age without marketing it, so to speak. I think we'd also have to work with an attorney that's familiar with legislation primarily to draft language that we'd have at our hip, because you could, the traditional way of doing this like 30-40 years ago would have been to sit in a room, talk to our legislators, give them a list of goals that we need met. They would meet with legislative council, draft a bill, gather some sponsors, introduce it on the floor, it get referred to a committee, and then that chair would decide whether or not it even takes testimony or if it dies on the wall. In today's day and age, if you want to move the needle, you have to have language on your hip that accomplishes goals that you've predetermined, and you have to have it ready to insert in a miscellaneous bill at any given time. And then you have to have people in the building that are operators that know, when a deal is about to be cut on a certain issue, maybe the ag bill is moving through, maybe this one, the appropriations bill, and they know where to go and how to get language inserted in legislation and pass it without much debate. And I think an issue like getting every stormwater utility in the state $1 million a year, whatever the number ends up being, So long as our MS4 permit has been accepted by A&R for any given 5-year period. I think that's the type of strategy we need to deploy to really get that to happen. I mean, I'm with Jeff as far as like, I am not happy seeing homeowners pay into a slush fund that we haven't been able to spend for a lot of reasons outside of our control. I agree with using the utility model to collect it because it takes a lot of burden off of homeowners and places it on the state and then large corporations that have an extreme amount of truck traffic that degrade the roadways and everything else. But anyway, if we don't receive money, and I think that's why we need to get in a group sooner than later and start to set dates and expectations and tackle it this legislative cycle. I think we need to start talking about what it looks like if we decide to do just a couple projects that create property rights issues. You know, people can't enjoy their backyard because the development didn't have an adequately maintained pond that overflows every time they get an inch of rain or whatever it is. Take these isolated issues like a 30-year-old ditch that filled up with sediment that we need to get a right of way for and go out and just clean it out in half a day and be done with it. And maybe solve a couple of those local issues and then just disband this whole thing and leave it up to the state to come after us. But like, I walked out of that meeting feeling totally defeated. I didn't feel like we got anywhere. And I don't know how we get somewhere without getting in a group of people from other communities and starting to pool numbers and make joint statements. And I'll get on the same page as far as that goes. So I don't know, Sean, if you want to try to ringlead that, I would totally support that. I don't think you need a motion from us to move in that direction, but just even having Dave as our stormwater director, send an email out to everyone listed within a utility, whether it's a public works director or a stormwater coordinator, and say, these are the issues we are experiencing at like a global level throughout our utility, inadequate funding. You know, we're finding every rainstorm that things drain differently than we had originally expected. So we're redesigning things or postponing certain projects, prioritize others that aren't even designed yet. See if we can all get in the same room and figure out if there's a strategy we can all deploy together that gets us to a point where we can actually build these things without overtaxing our population.
I'll just say I like that idea. I think right now, though, we've got a few things. I mean, I think we can still move forward and look at funding next year. How do we get the state funding? And we have some money right now, right? We've got $500,000 and all that.
And bills just went out, right?
No,
haven't?
stormwater hasn't gone.
Okay, no. But I think, I mean, for me, I'm just wondering if there's a way we can at least start. Tanglewood's a huge issue.
Well, I know,
right?
I know we just start to work, and I think we can start making improvements if we force ourselves to. And I think that the stormwater utility funding mechanism is flawed. And I understand that it's meant to be equitable, and I get all that, but to me, it makes more sense to use sales tax money than it does to use property tax money. And to that end, I'd like to make a motion that we disband the stormwater utility fund and rely on other funds to fund our stormwater efforts, which will force the state to come up with money, because they aren't going to see a big pot of money sitting there and say, why don't you just do it yourself? And it will force us to be more fiscally responsible, and it will help the taxpayers. And I would like to make that motion. And if the board chooses not to move forward with it, then the board can do that. But I think the meeting last week did not bode well for us in the long term, getting support from the state, and the state should not feel comfortable sending basically unfunded mandates to the towns. I know we got a shot of money from them. That is not going to continue. With the stuff that they passed last year, this state is going to go the wrong way in a hurry financially, because they've got tons of unfunded commitments. So I think that we should utilize other funds that we have access to in the town to fund these projects. And I think that would be a more judicial use of funds than just assessing another tax on property So
And
I'll
you're-
make that motion and see where it goes.
And your motion is for the current year we're in, as in
I-
withdrawing our. is that
I
what you're
do
suggesting?
not, I don't, maybe too late to do anything this year, but for next year, I would for sure. I mean, it could be amended based on discussion. If there's no second, then we don't need to talk about it.
You're saying it's possible, the year we're in right now, like you need to draw.
It's possible to do it in the year we're in right now, or if we just wanted to wait till next year because the wheels are so far. I have no idea about if that's possible. That's more of an, I don't know how, I don't know the logistics of how that works, but I think that we need to fix the fund.
It would alter the budget quite a bit.
I'm sorry.
It would alter the budget quite a bit.
Okay, I just want to understand.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just saying that out.
So it sounds like a motion kind of.
For the budget that we're in.
Yes,
yeah, because they're gonna try to collect that money.
yeah. We have to find a lot of money elsewhere.
We've got an employee now being paid from the
Right.
utility.
Right, yeah.
We'd have to find where we're gonna pull that money from. I mean, I could look at. If you told me you wanted to take ARPA money and use that, like, for a period of years until it's gone. Like, I could, I don't know, I guess it's like, it's such a big motion to have to consider. So many different ways that it can affect employees and. Projects and grant opportunities and funding that we're planning to receive, but might not otherwise. That, I don't know that we could like. Realistically act on that with a complete picture.
So what does grant funding have to do with how we fund our stormwater?
So say you've got a $360,000 grant for Clyde Allen. I don't know that somewhere in that language it wasn't awarded in part because we have a utility and. Have a
We still have
utility
a
ordinance.
utility.
We still have a utility.
So you're
We're
saying,
not funding it.
Well, I think
We're
Future
changing the
grants.
whole utility.
Yeah,
We're
I
changing the funding.
Yeah, the utility, right, is really, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's used for two purposes. The money that we're raising, $50, say, right? Is used to pay our personnel who work on stormwater, right? And used to pay what theoretically I'm calling the town match, meaning that stormwater
For
match
grants.
versus the HOA
Right.
versus the
Yeah.
federal and state. I mean, I don't know if we're gonna have a second on that.
If we don't have a second, then we don't. need
and
to
what's the
discuss it
revenue
further.
budget for the stormwater utility as far as like
Trying to find that.
actual ERU fees? Like, is it? I wanna say it's between like 360 and 400, somewhere in there. Yeah, yeah, so like our local option tax brings them. 1.1 conservatively,
Mhm.
we have 300 of that for the next 8 years on this building.
Yeah.
And then we funded 150 grand a year for a few years on sidewalk projects, the 3 that we approved. And then you add this in, and then that's taxed out and maxed out. And unavailable for anything else, and then it runs a specter of what do we do if. Somebody has some language on their hip to claw back, and this is something that's possible. Claw back the local option tax and put it in a statewide fund. And then delegate it out to towns based on need, which is that's language that's been
But
drafted.
I would say that our argument would be that we're utilizing that money to deal with state mandated issues. And that's probably a better, proper use of that money than it's addressing the things that the state wants addressed. So why take it from us? I say they take it otherwise. I say it saves the LMTs.
I don't know, I mean, I don't see that argument flying with the legislature. They look at. All small towns that have no capability of generating revenue like we do. And they'd say, kind of like the ed fund. That all the money should go into one pot and get equally distributed based on need. And. There are a lot of, there's like what, 12, how many MS4 communities were there? I can't remember.
12 or 14.
12 or 14. I mean, they might have a stronger case to get more, like it could be it could turn out to be some kind of a weighted chart that says if you are an MS4, you get more, if you get. You know, if you have a population over 10,000, you get more. I don't know what they'll end up coming up with, but
Speculation.
I mean, it's gonna come down the wire at some.
Well, that's what
point.
they did this year. If he didn't catch the glitch or the clerical error, we were lower, we were gonna get 250,
half of that or something.
something, yeah, and then we got 459 because
I
of,
think,
that
we
weight.
should right now figure out, I mean, make a decision at least,
So what was your
short
motion
term.
again?
My motion was to stop funding the stormwater utility work with
or fee.
a fee and use other funds at the disposal of the town to fund that work. And to make it easier, I'll add to the motion that should start in the next fiscal year. So this year we would collect it. This would be the last year collecting it. And that gives us a year to figure it out.
Is it, I'm just gonna throw it, is it necessary to do that for next year, or is that
We haven't
something that?
we're about to start the budget process,
Right,
so,
budget
So at the beginning of the budget process, we would know going into it that we're not collecting.
or we could talk through it as we go.
I'm gonna second.
But
that.
that'll send a message to the state that we can't play games with them.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna second that motion because we need to figure this out. We really need, I mean, it was adopted, I don't know, 2 years ago. I don't think the end game was fully thought out. We gotta know where we're going. We just can't keep piling up money and not putting it to good use. And we've got other funds that's just sitting there too. I mean, we might as well use it. We got, what is it, 1.9 ARPA money? Yeah. What have we done? We even got a plan for it.
Well, we do have a plan for the storm, we have a list of projects on
I know
that front, so now it's a matter of if we want to
Got
push
how much-
forward.
How much stormwater with money we got stashed now?
About 700,000.
Yeah.
Not counting what you
Yeah.
got?
You're
Does
right.
that count what Dave got from the state before?
So we got over.
No, it's separate, yeah. So that's why I was saying, we're ready to move forward with the projects and start designing future ones, but.
We can get the two biggest projects done with what we've taken.
What we have now.
Yeah, with also some room to design the remaining, or at least the next projects in line.
I'm just gonna speak to it and just say, I think we should just delay and wait on next year, right? We've got time, because I mean, honestly, I'd prefer to see it. Unless we have a better project for ARPA, which I know we're still waiting on some report. I'd prefer to use ARPA funds for it. I think we're allowed to use it for that. This year, I mean, I feel like, I mean, maybe they haven't been sent out, but I feel like I don't want to say it's too late, but I feel like we're got it set. I'd like us to move forward.
I would support
And-
using ARPA for stormwater.
Yeah, and I just, I think, one thing that's been, one thing I want to make sure we have is some kind of precedent that is, I asked myself, I want discussion, when I'm discussing, and then what we'll call the vote. Did you seconded it, correct?
Yes, I did.
You're right. Let me throw a pause here. So the motion on the floor is for next year to state now we're gonna use LOT money.
Or any other general fund, ARPA, some other funding mechanism that doesn't
But
levy a
not
fee
have-
or a tax on property.
Okay.
You want me to read the motion?
Yes, please.
Motion to disband the stormwater utility and use other forms of funding to fund stormwater projects starting the next fiscal year.
Okay, and so I just want to clarify, we're not disbanding the stormwater utility, correct? We're
Correct.
stormwater,
Changing the funding.
discontinuing the funding mechanism, you're saying, changing the source of the fee.
Okay.
Can you read it again, Jen, what you have?
Yeah, so it would be motion to, I think Jeff originally said, stop funding the stormwater utility and use other forms of funding to fund stormwater projects starting the next fiscal year. Yes, no?
Yes, to discontinue funding the stormwater utility with the ERU fee, if that makes
Yeah, sure.
sense.
Okay,
And then replace it with an alternate source for next year. Undetermined, correct?
Not to include fees on private property.
Okay. I'll try it again, Jen. Current iteration is.
Um,
Making
Stop.
your, like,
it's hurting. Stop funding ERU, is that what you said?
Yes, stop. I think this is correct. I'll try to say it the best of my recollection.
Okay,
We're gonna stop funding the stormwater utility with we'll call it the ERU fee
yes,
and replace it with an alternate funding source.
yes, and
Be determined later, right? ARPA law, something. Yeah. Okay, that's good.
source, that sounds perfect. Yep,
Next fiscal year, right? Not this current.
Yeah, for the next fiscal year.
for the next fiscal year. Yep.
Does it not seem rushed to get, like, I'm not,
Hold on one second, Brad. I'm gonna try to follow it. So that's the motion on the floor. Does anyone want to second that motion?
I did.
We'll go to, okay, so we get a second on it. Discussion, Brendan?
we had a meeting last week. We issued some ultimatums, and I think I made most of them, threatening to scrap the whole stormwater utility, not the funding mechanism. That's one. ARPA funds, I could see using a portion of them to cover some stormwater projects, like specific projects. But also, I think there's a larger discussion that has to be held in the community on whether or not the general public wants ARPA spent on stormwater, because they might look at that and say that's one-time money that could have been spent on something like the stone house, and I'd rather see that get done before stormwater. So you could have a large segment of the population that would rather not see that get delegated, and I don't want to overtax the or overspend on the LOT. Maybe there's a combination of the two. I just like, as far as political maneuvering goes, like, this isn't a bad move, but I think it's 3 moves too early.
Well,
I think.
let me be clear.
I think.
I'm not being political at all about this.
I think just buys us time to figure it out.
It gives us a year to figure it out.
I don't know why we would do it now versus like in October when we're reviewing budgets and have had a chance to talk to other utilities and figure out if there's any traction. Like, in a perfect world for me, the administration would come back with, okay, we're gonna find you money and we're gonna give you it directly. I mean, there was talk last year about providing utilities more money, but they were gonna give it to the regional planning commissions and then give it out. And we said that was a no-go. So now we could go back with some actual horsepower with other towns and say, we want it directly. Here's how we think we arrive at the amount of money that we each need, fund it or don't. And if you don't, we're each going to stop doing stormwater work, period. I think if you tell the state, we're gonna spend all our ARPA money, and if need be, go into the local option tax to do this work, that hurts our case with them as to, we need money. They're gonna say, okay, well, you got 1.9 town of St. Albans, so when you burn through that, come back to us. And that's gonna take us 3 years. So we're gonna come back with no new revenue source to cover it. Our options are gonna be spend the local option tax down, which will probably have already redelegated to other priorities that we have, or reinstitute the fee, which is more equitable than a property tax. I mean, it just feels way cart before horse. I
think the thing was cart before the horse when it was born, in my mind.
I don't think the funding source really has any impact with our relationship with the state and what they should be doing for us. Like, why does that, I know we change it in their eyes, but like, who cares?
I would rather go to them and say, we're not using ARPA, we're not using LOT, and we think we're collecting too much with our ERU fee, and if you don't help us lower it, like right now, we collect 50 per ERU, you need to come up with another 30 so we can lower it to 20. And if you don't do that, we're disbanding the whole thing. Like, we need to have a more thought out conversation as to exactly what we want from the state. We need to make the demand, preferably with a lot of other people backing us and making the same demand, and then let them say no, and then we need to just scrap the thing in totality and say we're gonna spend ARPA on Tanglewood, and maybe we give a portion of it to do the Gricebrook, Sash, Town School project, and then we spend the grant to do Clyde Allen, and then we're done. And then beyond that, the only time the town of St. Albans gets involved in stormwater, as far as we're concerned, is, a private property owner tells us we were dumping a ton of public water on them in an old ditch, and we need to take an easement to go clean it out. I mean, I'm all about getting leverage and getting that stormwater utility fee either drastically lowered or removed by using state money. I just don't want to use our other, like, I don't want to rob from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just gonna say, I think we have some time to think about it. We could vote now to make a decision that takes place later, but we could also give ourselves time.
Either way.
So-
there's some-
So even if we do vote on this, we can still amend it and decide how we're gonna fund it and what percentages we're gonna take from where. It's not a like concrete motion.
I would say that either way, these discussions are
same
gonna
thing.
happen
It's
without.
gonna
Yeah,
happen
exactly.
like
Yeah.
pretty soon because October is right around the
Yeah.
corner. Budget's gonna
Yeah.
start here shortly. So
Yeah,
like, it's not like it's months away, like we're gonna be
Yeah.
talking about it.
It's like 4 meetings.
So Brian,
Yeah.
I'll vote.
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna happen.
All right,
Regardless.
let's call the question. All in favor of Jeff's motion?
We're voting. Come on.
Sorry,
10 seconds.
fascinating.
Okay.
You've already laid it all out. You just, you found yourself, you just laid it all out 20 minutes ago on the motion. You got the right plan, get together with people. The people you had here a week ago don't make decisions. Not one of them makes a decision. You need to talk to people, make the decision.
agree.
Just to use what they call the breakfast, legislative breakfast. We get all local legislators in and our people from the community and our boards. And pin them down and tell them where we stand and ask them how they can help us and where they stand. You're right on. You're absolutely right on. You and I, you've got more than you lived here forever. I've been here 48 years or 45 years. so-
I'm gonna push this on because I want to get onto the question. I agree with you.
You've said it all already. You've done exactly what you gotta do. And now you've got to follow Brendan's advice from 20-30 minutes ago and do it. You're going the right direction.
I would say
Thank you.
we should do
Let's,
this exact motion like 3 months from now if we don't get any traction from anyone else.
The motion's up. We got a second. Let's call the question and either way, the point is, whatever it ends up on, we can change it if
We
needed.
could change it next meeting if somebody calls.
could.
motion second.
So let's call the question for Jeff's motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so 3-1. So we'll be funding it from a different source next year and unless we decide different. It's 3-1. And then we're 3-1. Okay, so that's one motion for next year, but I still, my major concern here is trying to move forward. We have money, we have it there, we can use it. We got a big chunk from the federal and state government. Again, I'm not sure the order which it comes first, but I know Tanglewood is up there. Tanglewood has major issues. A lot of it, maybe it was some of it was their fault from years ago, but some of it's coming down from that road, the Sash. So I'm not sure if we can have a motion to accept, or if we need more time, yet again, to at least start with the funding, recommendations that Sean had for at least those first few projects. Again, I'd love to see something that could be sustainable, which is the state and federal government paying most of each project. However, we get that money in the future.
So
But
Dave,
to have something that we can do that can possibly be sustainable and keep going. We mentioned 10% or
Yeah.
12.5, something like
so
that.
Dave, it was my understanding that Tanglewood was shovel ready until we realized that the state storm water hadn't been figured in.
That's correct. So the Tanglewood project is part of the line manage stormwater from Tanglewood. So the design, the handle water that's coming from the Sash, a lot of that water that's coming from the Sash is passed through from Bradford and Sajac and on up the hill. So I reached out to everyone, I tried to set up a meeting with the state, with the school, Bradford, the city, because there is another project that can go into the same.
Yeah.
In the ground wetland, the west side and the. So I'm trying to figure out how all this stuff.
Is that the one that is down on near Holton Park? Is that?
No, the one right behind the school, kind of town school.
Brian,
I'm trying to figure out how all this stuff. It's not a.
So is there one engineering firm that's looking into that, or are you trying to trick?
But I mean, I guess I don't understand how they did Tanglewood and didn't figure the water off the interstate. How does that happen?
That's gonna drastically change that plan, isn't it?
So it won't go this year.
So
Well,
what, I mean,
Brian-
how do we move forward then? What do you think, Dave, in terms of, do we need to reevaluate that whole project? Yeah. I've seen your
So are you trying
emails
to
and stuff.
this yourself, or you probably need some backup?
So far, it's just trying to get a meeting.
Right, but is it gonna be a joint meeting?
Brian,
Yeah.
so that,
With the state.
I got a point.
Sorry, let me go over to Brennan.
I got a point to make, and it's not me being the one guy out sour grapes, like Robert's rules, the board made a decision of the quorum, I'll die on that sword, like that's the way it is. But the stormwater utility ordinance, Article 3 governs stormwater system user fees. And in order to do what we just passed a motion for, we have to warn that ordinance and then pass a new version of it and go through the proper process of warning it. And if we don't do that, then what we just did wouldn't stand up. So like, if that's the goal, then that's just what we have to do. And I'm just saying that administratively, we have to take care of that. And then redo that motion, but make it about passing a new ordinance that eliminates that language.
Okay.
So right now, I would argue that we haven't really done anything because we didn't go through the right channel,
We've had a
but we
good
can do it.
discussion on it. Okay, so is that whatever we need to do, Sean? On that? That's okay. So for now, Dave, so I'm concerned about what we do next, as soon as we can. You're trying to meet with folks to try to get a handle on the Tanglewood, if it's possible with the price tag where the money they have still meets roughly that 10 to 12.5%. We can match that from the stormwater utility, and hopefully we'll still have enough from federal and state grants, depending on what that final number is. Is that correct?
Well, we got 1.6. Supposed to Guide Allen, that's what I'm reading here, is that right? So that's more than enough to do.
You know, and I'm saying enough federal and state money to make up roughly 75 to 80% of it. If that's kind of our target.
Plus the match, yeah.
So how long does it,
Right now, people think
it ain't gonna work? So how long?
Dave, you need to go up to the microphone if you're going to continue speaking.
Come on, Dave.
Play by the rules. Thank you.
Not here, man.
Dave's not here, man. Yes, if we build Tanglewood now, the way it's designed, it's not gonna handle any flow coming off of the sash. Because that water was going down Tanglewood, it was overflowing all the undersides. Well, the ditches need to be cleaned out. Some of the culverts are not sized
They're not
to
sized.
handle all
Yeah,
of
they
that
never were.
water coming off
Right.
of the sash.
Yep.
And then when it makes the curve to go around over to the pond, it just overflows that, and then it starts flowing down Potter Ave. And then Potter Ave, there's a culvert down there we need to clean up. But also, at the end of that culvert that we need to clean out, it's the same issue as we have at Ashton and up below Bayview, is that the ditch is all plugged up and it's on private property.
And Dave, I think you shared an email, correct, where the state returned your inquiry saying that they have no liability of the rain coming off the sash any further than.
That's pretty much what they were
1960s or
saying, and
something.
I followed up with him and he's ignored me. That's why I'm trying to set up a meeting with everybody. I'll see if I can get them to show up to a meeting or get them. So I had 4 of them online that I was talking with.
It just seems like that's where it's emanating from, and it's certainly not a town road.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's everybody. It's the whole side of the hill there coming down and all gets funneled into a couple of places and then just dumps. And unfortunately, those 2 houses on Tangle is where all that water is dumping onto. I was out there in the big storm and there was a big whirlpool up there. I thought they had a catch basin or something, but no, it was just an undersized culvert.
Yep.
So it's a bigger issue than just Tanglewood.
So how long is it gonna take Aldridge and Elliott to come up with a new plan?
I,
and a new
I
price?
don't know. They're gonna be, well, I've got them coming to this meeting too.
Oh, good.
Because they were working on Grice Brook for us. They were doing Tanglewood. And then they were working with the city on that lower sash project. So all of it ties together. SATEC was working with somebody else. But we can get them in the room too.
Right.
You know, half of their water goes one way and the other half goes the other way to the sash.
So I wonder who must be the governor's the one that's gonna get the AOT guy to come there and sit down and
It,
talk.
it may have to be Joe Flynn,
Yeah, well,
secretary.
yeah. He's a good guy.
Thanks for staying on this, Dave.
Well, I just,
So obviously-
I don't want to spend $500,000 and then have the first
no.
big storm come in here and everything's overflowing and they're saying, what the heck did you guys do?
That was-
right.
That was my email commentary last week, is we need to figure the sash out before we build Tanglewood, which is the exact worst outcome for us, having tried to implement some kind of Tanglewood project. I'm glad we didn't, knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
But like, based on what I'd read that V-Trans provided, is that they think everything's working the way it's supposed to, and that development is SOL because it probably shouldn't have been built there.
That's kind of what it sounded like.
And
Yeah, they said their
Meanwhile-
project was built in the 60s and Tanglewood was in the 90s and I did notice that they went out and mowed everything on the
Yeah, I
sash.
saw that.
That was on,
That's where they are sunk in.
I don't know if that was a direct act of
Yeah, all right, so I guess,
contacting them and all
yeah.
this. But anyway,
yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, it's, I was hoping that we would come and be able to have a motion to move forward, but it sounds like without a dollar tag on that, it's hard to do right now, so. Any other final comments on this? Obviously, sounds like Dave's trying to get all the right people in
Have
the
you
right room.
looked at any of the other project site plans to see if they're misengineered as well?
well, Clyde Allen Drive is just in design right now. And right now I need to talk to the housing trust over there to make sure that we can get the easement to put the gravel wetland on that one edge of their property. If we can't get that, then that project is just gonna go away. After that is Grice Brook and we need to redesign, I guess. I haven't had time to deal with Grice Brook at this point.
Yeah.
But you know, I think some of the selectmen should be at whatever meeting that he puts together. Can leave it up to him. Right?
Yep, let us know, please, Dave.
And our reps.
That would be huge, yeah.
No, I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yep.
and
Mr. Toof,
the other guy.
Mr. Dickinson, or Mr. Dickinson. Yep.
Just another comment. I did contact all the other MS4s around here to see how they're trying to fund these projects with grants and everything. I think it was, well, I didn't hear back from any of them, but I contacted all my friends at Williston, Burlington, South Burlington, Essex Junction, Colchester, all the other MS4s. I didn't do the Rutland and Albans Town, but and they didn't get back to me on how they're trying to figure out how to pay all these projects or fund all these projects and be equitable to the residents. So I'm sure it's because they don't have any answers either.
Was that via email or did you call?
That was an email I sent to everybody. So
Not a response.
not one response, no.
So,
And generally we go back and forth on stuff anyway, just to.
They're going, uh-oh. He's on to it.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Any final questions or comments?
one quick question. So when, and I think you already do this, because I think Emily was doing it, right, wrong, or different. But during the development review board meetings or before prior, do you look at the plans?
We do, yes.
You
we
still
do.
do? Okay.
Yep. EIV was looking at them before, but now I'm looking at them
You'll-
too. So as they come in,
Perfect.
definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. I think that closes us for stormwater for tonight, till the next one. And I think that's it, Sean, is that correct? That is correct. All right, next couple meetings here, we've got 2.5 weeks. The next one will be Wednesday, September 6th, again, pushed out for the Labor Day. Then Monday, September 18th is 6:30. And then soon after that, we'll be planning our budget meetings, because that'll be coming up, as we've already indicated in the. Like you said, 4 meetings, Jeff, maybe 2.
Maybe 2.
Getting close there. No, I just had one thing, I think, for the chairs thing here. I just wanted to highlight, and it was kind of already brought up tonight, but I think we just got the revenue in from the LOT, and I did a quick scan on it. I believe it is our second highest quarter ever. But it's the highest, quarter one on a fiscal year that we've ever had. So the amount was $281,978.27. So last year at the same quarter was about $7,000 less. So not a huge increase, but it just continues to get bigger and bigger every year. The only quarter that's higher than us right now is the quarter last year that included Christmas shopping. So it's the only one, and that was about $10,000 more than what we just brought in. So just like to point that out. And again, we've had it on for was it Brennan back 2014 or so, 2014, and it's just, again, it's gone from $500,000 to 1.1 million last year. So I just wanted to point that out. So we get that in. And I think that is it for me. I think we're up to, if there's any other business that anyone has.
Sean, how are they coming on the odor here at the window?
The odor,
Yeah,
they think they found the problem and come in tomorrow, Wednesday morning to address it.
it's like, it hit me the other
It's-
day. And I-
Odor as in smell?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sewer.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay.
yeah, we're having.
I can't
a couple
smell.
meetings this week.
Oh,
Well, it's a good thing.
yeah, it was, I didn't smell it at first. I was talking to Anna, all of a sudden, whoa, is that what you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Any other business? So I think, we have, I think, just one thing in executive session. Someone have that motion, Andy?
I'm looking for it. I don't see it.
Yeah, it wasn't, usually it's included on here. So throw me off
Well, it's
here.
contractual.
Yeah, I gotta read that.
Oh, boy.
Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss a contractual matter where premature general public knowledge of the subject matter would place the town at a substantial disadvantage. It's further moved to enter into executive session to discuss a contractual matter under the provisions Title 1, Section 313A1 of this Vermont statutes, and to invite the town manager, Sean Atkins. And is Al coming with us? And Al Vogel, the interim director of operation.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.